June is Pride Month, a time to celebrate the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community and their struggle for equal rights. Organizers chose June as Pride Month to honor the 1969 Stonewall riots in New York City. They were a series of uprisings by the gay community against police raids of the Stonewall Inn, a popular gay bar in Greenwich Village. The riots are considered the start of the modern gay rights movement. President Trump marked Pride Month this year with a tweet celebrating LGBT rights, becoming the first Republican president to acknowledge Pride Month. But just a month earlier, his administration had effectively banned transgender people from serving in the military. Stacey Long Simmons is the Director of Advocacy and Action at the National LGBTQ Task Force. It's so nice to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Those two things are in complete contradiction. So assess for me, I think tweeting about Pride Month is kind of a low bar, but assess for me how you would say President Trump and the administration is doing when it comes to issues for LGBTQ people.
Well, first, let me just say, isn't it interesting that this president would be speaking out of both sides of his mouth in terms of what he would do on such an important symbolic day as Pride Month, and what he's actually doing in terms of policy, which is rolling back continually every single area of the progress that we have done under the previous administration.
I know you're being sarcastic, but some people might not read that sarcasm. Like clearly, he literally does that all the time.
Yes.
Says one thing, and in the actions does completely the opposite, and in some very devastating ways.
That's absolutely correct. One of the early things that they did was in the Department of Education, removing the guidance that very much protected transgender youth in the schools and provided schools with clarity about how they should handle having transgender students in their schools.
Under Secretary Betsy DeVos.
That's correct.
The president has sought to remove questions about sexual identity from the 2020 census. What potentially could be the impact of that?
Sure. So the census is really important, and our organization has been leading on this since way, way back when, and was part of the early days when same-sex couples were actually able to identify themselves in the census. And so fast forward, we recognize that it's very circular to say that, well, we would support your community and give you money to focus on your needs, but we don't really know how many of you there are. And so now to say that we're not going to include you in the census is erecting a barrier, and it really keeps us from being able to have adequate representation, adequate access to resources, and adequate opportunities to really quantify our numbers and our specific and particular needs.
As a leader of the National LGBTQ Task Force, one could imagine that your job would be a very narrow focus of this is what I do, LGBTQ issues, period, full stop. And I'm always amazed that it's not. You guys get into many, many other issues around criminal justice, around immigration, unions sometimes. Why have such a wide angle, if you will, on this?
Sure, because this country is actually representative of the LGBTQ community. So all of the issues that we're grappling with, whether it's parenting our children or having quality education or being able to have gainful employment, it's the reason why it's so essential to us that we are alongside all of our partners in the labor movement and in the reproductive health rights justice movement. It really has a very direct impact on our quality of life.
What do you think will be the role of gay rights when it comes to the 2020 candidates who are trying to speak to the American people? Will it be something that's ignored because people don't care, or do you think it's going to have a very big role in this, now it's already started, so very, very long election cycle?
Well, I'm of two minds. I think that we are certainly past the point where candidates can go forward and not have specific ideas or not sort of cater to the LGBTQ community in any way. And so you'll find that many of them have actually courted our community specifically and directly. However, the culture wars that are underway, as I mentioned earlier with regard to transgender people, are still one of the tactics that are used to divide and separate. So it's done racially, it's done along religious lines, it's done along sexual orientation and gender identity as well. And so I think that those candidates are going to have to be willing to pick up the baton and continue the work to get the Equality Act passed into law, and also fix some of the damage that's been done under the current administration.
Stacey Long Simmons, it's so nice to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.